Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Tyler. My co host is Elizabeth. She is my mom, and we love movies. So, today we are going to be talking about John Wick. We love this movie, and we had a lot of fun recording this and diving deep into it. So, hope you guys enjoy, and let's get into it.
Yeah, this is going to be really fun. Let me get my coffee. All right, so
The thing that I find the most fun is that you're having me watch movies I haven't watched in a long time. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, okay.
yeah, yeah.
So,
And actually, someone came up to me last night because they were like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm doing homework." And he goes, "No, you're watching John Wick." And I said, "Yeah, that's my homework." So we are doing John Wick. This came out in 2014. It stars, of course, Keanu Reeves. Okay, so right off the bat, obviously, the movie actually starts with a clip from the very end, and sometimes, in my opinion, this works in a movie. Sometimes it doesn't, because you don't want it to give away too much, but it also lets you sit there and think, okay, who is this guy? What happened to him? Why is he watching a video on his phone? Why is he bleeding? Why is his car destroyed? Like, what's going on? But it's wonderful. I like they do that. And then it cuts into a little montage about his wife. And then you can kind of see, okay, that's why he was watching the video. That's his late wife. And then it goes into like her funeral. And then you realize, oh, she like just passed away. So in that little clip right at the beginning, just that series of clips, it tells you a lot. It tells you something about this guy is you don't know that he's violent. You don't know that he's trained or skilled or anything. You just know at some point he's going to be bleeding out and laying on the ground watching a video of his late wife, who also just died days before, whose funeral was like yesterday. There's no monologue or, narrator or anything like a lot of movies will do. Just give you a lot of information. You just have to watch. And I really like that. But right off the bat, you've got that montage, and then the thing that I was going to get into, my first little note here, is at like 6 minutes. He gets a ring at his door, and it's a mail carrier, and so he signs for this package. And the thing I didn't notice the first couple times that I watched this, I picked up on it this time though, is that he signs his name and he takes the pen, and we're not going to go too much into this, but she has to say like the pen back, right? And he kind of pauses and goes, "Oh, sorry," and hands it back to her, and that's it. That's the interaction. Like it's just that little him keeping her pen. That specific payoff doesn't happen until like the next movie, but it's really cool because that is obviously a habit of his to keep something with him, right? It's like, oh, okay, I might need this. He doesn't at all. He's just at his house, But it's just such second nature that he's like in his mind he's probably just thinking, all right, I'm just gonna keep this. Uh, but you don't know anything about it. It's such a small thing, and it probably flew over the head of most people when they saw it, because we've all just like accidentally kept someone's pen, but in the background, that's not what he's doing, and I like that right off the bat with some of the little shots, like in the morning he's getting coffee. He picks up his coffee cup, and there's a coffee cup sitting there that was his wife's, and it has a big daisy on it. And then there's a bracelet that he's holding that he sets down on his bedside table, and that has a bunch of daisies on it. The card that she writes to John with the dog has a daisy on the front, and when he looks at the tag on the dog's name is Daisy. So clearly, his wife, that was her favorite flower. This is her thing, and I like that. Like, it just shows, in my opinion, it shows that she was such a happy, spirited person that like her thing was a bright flower that was white. That brings a lot more power into later what John used to do and him getting out and what he had to do for that and stuff, that you're just like, oh, he left a dark world to go to be with this woman who was like all about sunshine and light and flowers. It just kind of adds more to what's going to happen. I mean, clearly he has not had time for pets as well because he forgets, like he doesn't have food for the dog. That's understandable. If a cat showed up to my door, I wouldn't have cat food for it, right? But he forgets things like he tells the dog to stay close and realizes, oh, the dog has to go to the bathroom. Side note on the dog going to the bathroom, by the way. Weird thing to side note, but the director in the commentary said that the CGI for the dog poop on the lawn cost about $5,000 to make. I don't know why it was needed, honestly, but whatever. It's their money. So the car that John Wick has is I picked up on it immediately because it's actually my dream car. It's a 1969 Mustang Boss 429.
It's pretty nice.
And that it is a really nice one. The next scene there is when he's driving around the airport, and seeing him just drive around is so fun because I love how that engine sounds. And he did 95% of the driving. Yeah. The only part he didn't do is when he got the car to come like this far from the bulldozers or whatever those were.
Yeah.
He didn't do that, but everything else he did. But he's really good at driving. Like he owns his own motorcycle company and rides motorcycles constantly. He's really, really good. Yeah. So and obviously come in at any point on any of this stuff. And anything you want to talk about.
Well, so when I was looking at it, I love that you're looking at the backstory of some of this stuff, whereas I'm just critiquing the movie. And as far as I'm just critiquing it from like so my college degree is in literary analysis, and so I love to analyze things, especially when it comes to something like this. So what I gleaned from it first was that when you're talking about the car, is that just that whole scene where not a whole lot is said, but so much is being said. Like, are we going to go into like how they even have the car and stuff? Or are you just talking about his car in general right now and just driving around?
Okay, so in the card that his wife Helen gives him, she said, the car is not enough. You need to also, like, basically, like, I'm giving you this dog, the car is not enough. She gave him that car, which is, okay, I'm not saying that my wife
How do
has
you
to
know
give me a
that?
mustard.
How do you know that she gave him that car?
Because in the letter, I'm gleaning that because in the letter, she is giving him the dog and saying the car wasn't enough. Basically, it's like, that's not the only gift I'm giving you. This one's more important, kind of thing. And later, when things happen, which we'll get into actually pretty quickly, but there's two things that happen, both of which happened to things that his wife gave him the day after or 2 days after her funeral.
Yeah.
That throws him into the life that he had to work a quote impossible task to get out of for her. So that's how how I kind of know that the car is from her.
Okay, gotcha. So that's where I'd like to jump in this part of the movie, is because I'd like to talk about the whole situation with this young kid. Because this young kid is, well, actually, he's not trying to do anything. He is riding on the coattails of his father. He has absolutely no street experience, and the reason that I know this is because he doesn't even know who John Wick is. And clearly everybody in his circle, in his community, I mean, not everybody knows who John Wick is, but everybody in his father's circle clearly knows. Think about watching this movie, and this is the very first John Wick movie, right? And you don't have any backstory on anything. We just have this. And we see this guy who's, like just lost his wife. He's minding his own business and he's getting bullied at the gas station. And then his house gets broke into and he gets his butt kicked. Like he's just like having the worst day of his life. And then the worst thing happens. Tyler, Michael, they killed his dog. They killed that cute little baby puppy. I'll tell you what, I had a hard time with that part of the movie. That was probably the only part of the movie that I had a really hard time with.
Yeah.
And I'm not even joking. Like, that was rough. And so yeah, so we look at all that, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, John Wick just starts walking to the chop shop. And then immediately we know he knows where to find the chop shop. All these people know
He
him.
knows
They know
exactly where
his
his
car.
car went.
He knows exactly where it's at, right? Like, he's just like, where's my car? You know what I mean? Like, it was just, and if you're seeing this John Wick movie the first time, you know, in your mind, you're like, So what I wrote down was, when I'm looking at this in my perspective now, is that he worked for this family, you know, or with this family, or had close ties to this family. And so we see how his dog is sacrificed, how they have disrespected him in the most serious way that they could in the worst time of his life. And they've basically fueled his pain, transformed it into like this insane revenge hate. You know what I mean? Like, he's so focused. Nothing else matters. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's just really enjoyed that part of the movie when he just like, they do it throughout the whole movie, like this unspoken message that's happening, or this innuendo that's happening in
Yeah.
many places in the movie, and I just really love it because we already know what all the innuendo means, right? So it's really fun
Yeah.
to watch those happen.
So really quick, I want to know if
Yeah.
you noticed anything, because it stood out to me. It always has, and I looked into it. But what time did you? I don't know if you ever look at like clocks and calendars and things in movies. Do you notice what time he wakes up every day?
Is it 6 o'clock? 6:15?
It's 6 o'clock.
Six
Nope, it's
o'clock, yeah.
6 o'clock every day.
Yeah.
The day right after the thieves come in and break into his house, and the next day he wakes up. Did you see what time was on his clock when his alarm went off at?
No, I
Okay.
didn't.
It was 6:19. 6:19.
His alarm went off?
So, okay, I stopped it there and I looked into it, because when I'm setting my alarm, it is by round numbers, whether it's a 5 or a 0, gotta be a round number. Weird to put your clock
Most
to
of the
like,
time, or like increments of 5. I mean, like, or mostly it's a round
yeah,
number, or it's like or it's like, like a quarter after or something, but that seems weird. So what did you get?
okay, so
What-
it's a Bible verse. It is
Okay.
Matthew. That's why I'm telling you. It's Matthew 6:19. And if you look at Matthew 6:19, it says, "Don't
Get it.
store up treasures here on earth, where moths eat and rust destroys, and thieves break in and steal. Store up your treasures in heaven, where moths and rust cannot destroy, thieves do not break in and steal. Where your heart is, your desires and heart will also be." Yeah, I was like, there's a reason that his alarm is set to 6:19.
Okay, now you're gonna make me. I wasn't gonna do it yet, but we're gonna do it now. Okay, so we're gonna do this now because now you got me going. Okay, so before this movie even started, on my DVD, like when you put the movie in and it's got the play and the scene select and all that stuff. So on my
Yeah,
DVD, it's John Wick's back, his tattoos on
yeah.
his back. And before I even watched the movie, I was like, that means, because it's in Latin and I'm not fluent, so I have to look stuff up. And then I went to a website, and it went through all of his tattoos and how, and so I'm gonna tell you, I got John Wick's backstory, which it may or may not be true. Some of it is true actually, because they did get it from other pieces of the movie, like down the, other, like the third movie and stuff. But let me just give you a few of the tattoos. So the one on his back that's in Latin, Fortis Fortuna Adjuvat, and that means fortune favors the bold. And so they say like a lot of military men, especially in the Marine Corps, they use Latin and it's solidarity and that. So they think maybe some of his fighting skills. And as we watch the movie, we know clearly that is not true. John Wick was never a Marine. None of his friends seem to be, you know what I mean? Like William Defoe,
Yeah.
like maybe a Marine sniper, maybe in the Vietnam or something. Okay, but they're trying to like build this backstory on him and they're reaching, I think, in that point of it. So that, like I said, I hadn't watched this movie in a decade. So I couldn't remember details, you know? So it was really fun for me to rewatch it again because then I could like build my. So this is before I even watched the movie. I was like, okay, I'm gonna just see what they say would be his backstory. So then this is one that I did feel was, as soon as you said what you were saying about the verse, I was like, oh, that fits into other pieces of his backstory where they're taught that the hands and the cross on his back, the hands on his back are almost identical to a very famous painting called Hands of the Praying Apostle. And it's a really well-known piece because they use white shadow with black ink on blue paper, and it's that very specific thing that makes it so beautiful and unique. And he had almost that identical tattoo on his back, which shows like a pious Christian, you know? So,
Mhm.
and it was the most prominent thing on his back also. So, it says a lot about a person.
Yeah.
But then they also talk about it also could be a tattoo used as a sign of penance, you know, because there's a lot of
Yep.
pain that comes in a large tattoo and the penance in it if you've done something really terrible in your life to, you know, the wolf on his shoulder, and we know that he is connected to the Russian mafia, right? And the Russian
Yep.
mob and all that stuff, and was raised by them. And the wolf on the shoulder indicates that he could have possibly been in a Russian prison because a lot of the prisoners will tattoo each other, and the wolf is used as a sign of aggression in that system.
Yeah.
And it's also connects them to Ruska Roma. There's connection there. It also could be a sign of loyalty to the Tarasova family. And it could also mean that he's also, you know, assassins are seen sometimes as people that are highly intellectual. Fine art piece on his back, like the praying hands, could show a sign of intelligence because it's not just like like a prison tattoo sort of thing, which means he showed appreciation for his own temple, you know. So sorry to kind of go backwards a little bit, but as soon as you said that about his faith, I thought we should pull that in because I think that, you know, I think a lot of men when they come to faith, they also have a lot of past forgiveness they seek out.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know if it's more him in the faith or if that's something they put in, kind of snuck in the background for the directorship. I will say though, I don't know if you probably noticed it, but when it is showing his tattoos and it shows the praying hand, did you notice that the lighting in that scene is blue? Because you were
No,
saying
I
that the
didn't
original
notice
the
that.
original painting is on blue paper. The lighting in that scene is blue. So
They do
I don't know.
do a lot of very great things with the lighting because I don't know if you know this about cinematography, but red is always a sign that something important is going to happen in that scene or to that person or something like that. So I noticed that in several of his fight scenes, especially like at the club and stuff. They would use red lighting like in the bathhouse, and so the blue
Yeah.
lighting behind that is really cool. I like that they thought about that,
Yeah.
you know?
And blue lighting is also used for a lot of times for a cold feeling. I think either Vigo, who we meet here in a minute, that might be his former employee somehow, because he's the one who sent him on a task later on. So yeah, I think he worked for this family, but he has. I like how they show from somebody else how well respected and feared John Wick is. Because, like you said, everyone in these circles know who he is. Because when he gets to right, John Wick goes out, finds that his car is missing, and his wife's car is busted up. So he walks over. He goes over to this car shop that Aurelio has, and he just says, "Was it here?" Like he knows if anyone's going to steal a car and bring it somewhere, it's going to be to you. And so it kind of shows like I like that it shows like a little bit of flashbacks throughout it as well. But I like that before he answers, he just pours him a strong drink and he just hands it to him, and it's just like, all right, like kind of like a sit down a minute, you're gonna need to hear it.
But 9 times
But
out of 10, he knew who this kid was, but the kid didn't know him.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's also why I believe John Wick went there, is because that's where that kid would go.
right. During the flashback where it's showing Yosef bringing him the car and stuff, and Aurelio's like, nope, get out of my shop. I don't want anything to do with this.
Yeah.
And he punches him.
He
He's like,
punched
what
him
the
in the
heck? Do you know who
face.
I am? In the face, yeah. And Aurelio says, well, I'll tell you something that Vigo's going to understand. And then it cuts away to this guy who we meet as Vigo, which is Yosef's dad. Vigo calls him and he's just like, I hear you hit my son. And Aurelio just tells him, like, yeah, he stole John Wick's car. And all Vigo says is, and that's the end of the
Yep.
phone call.
Because everybody knows who John Wick is.
Yeah. And then, I don't remember his name. He is the actor who is in all of the Mayhem commercials. I don't remember his name.
He is. That's where I know him from.
Yeah, he tells Vigo about this, this really big deal that went through that's really good. Like, hey, congratulations. And Vigo isn't even paying attention. He doesn't care. And the only thing he says is, do you know where my son is? The only thing on his mind at this point is, my son slighted John Wick. And he doesn't care about anything else. Yosef comes in, and he is so arrogant. He's so, like, he has this little line. There's a couple lines in this movie that I don't like because of how they're done and how they're, I don't know. Yosef comes in, he goes, oh, we won't be hearing from them again or ever. The or ever part I didn't like.
Yeah. He
But
was
it shows,
like,
but even so, like, his dad doesn't care. Doesn't care left or right how that mission went or how his task went. Vigo starts going into, it's not, because he's like, it's just a dog, it's just a car, like, whatever. Obviously, he's like, he doesn't usually have an issue with him stealing cars. He does not care. But he goes, it's not what you did that irritates me, it's who you did it to. He's just like, oh, you mean that nobody? And the line, that nobody, is John Wick. It's at that point that it cuts to John Wick. And it goes back and forth. And this is my favorite scene of this movie, where Vigo is telling his son about John Wick, and John Wick is preparing and stuff, right? Because when he says that, that nobody is John Wick, it just shows a dark shot looking up from the basement of a door opening, and it's just John Wick standing there. Still got blood in his shirt.
Yeah, I really like that scene of the movie too. But we still don't know. We don't know.
It's
not just that they know who John Wick is. It's that they have an agreement with John Wick. But we'll find out about that later.
The following, like, speech montage or whatever of him breaking through his basement floor to get to this chest that he obviously sealed his past behind him, cemented away in the basement underground, is like, okay, obviously I don't have to worry about this. But if it were to ever come up later, I know I'm safe, but it's out of the back of my mind. And I like that he did that for her.
Exactly. But there's another piece to that too. And the other piece is that it takes such effort to get it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a one and done to get it out. It is going to take incredible effort for a minute, for a long time to get that out. So you've got all that time to stop and think, like, if you really want to go forward. And there was no question in my mind that, like, he just wanted to get there as fast as he could. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
he wasn't contemplating if this was a good choice. He was like, I got nothing left to lose. Which, that drives a person that in itself drives a person into its own place, you know.
When he gets that chest out of the ground and he opens it up, it's the first moment where we realize, like, there's so much more about this guy. He's a lot more dangerous than we realize. Vigo is saying all of this to his son as well. So we get that side of it too, because he said,
He
like,
knows.
John Wick wanted to get out, so I gave him an impossible task. And the line he said is the bodies he buried that day, like, was the foundation to the empire that he has now. Like, this kid decided to do something that he thinks is just whatever. I do this all the time. I'm a thug, and I'm gonna show my quote unquote power against some random person because I like his car. And he got all uppity because when he first meets John Wick, he, in Russian to intimidate him, says, like, everything has a price. And John Wick replies in Russian, like, not this dog. And it's just one of those things that's just like, that's the thing that made Yosef snap. There's a whole scene about Vigo scolding his son. You know, I mean, to the point where he punches his own son, and he's just like, and this kid doesn't get it. He's just like,
Yeah.
okay, but I'll take care of it. And even Vigo's like, you're not listening to a single word I'm saying.
So now
Yeah.
that we're done with the fluff, we can actually get to the part of the movie that I enjoy the most, and that I have chronological all the fight scenes.
Yep.
My favorite part of the movies. And that's what happens with Vigo, because Vigo was thinking, like, I need to strike first. I need to hit him first before he hits me, because just maybe he's been out long enough where I've got a shot. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But he doesn't take into account that John Wick's into this, like, I got nothing to lose. And so Vigo sends his as many men as he had, right? That's what they said, to John Wick's house, like a bunch of Russian ninjas. This Vigo thinks that he's going to get one up on John Wick, but that's exactly what John Wick knew he was going to do. And that's what I feel like
Yep.
happened throughout the whole movie, is it, like he felt like he was one step ahead, but John Wick already knew this guy, and he was already one step ahead of him. You know what I mean? Like, he already knew.
Yep.
And so, like, he was
And
already prepared for that house to get invaded, and he already, like, and the fight scenes with the quick executions that he pulls off, like, he's not there to, the last movie that we just watched where I spoke about the samurais, like, the fight scenes were too long and drawn out because they were trying to be all acrobatic about it. Not John Wick, man. They're going to be like,
Nope.
boop, 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 as many as we can, as fast as we can. And so, yeah, that's what I loved about the home invasion fight scene.
Yeah. Well, and one of the little details that I liked is that right before they come, he turns off all of the lights in his house. What's interesting is that, like, in the whole scene, you know, it's pretty well lit up, and obviously that is for movie purposes. They can't actually make it all dark, but they do the same thing in Titanic, where the end of the movie, everything is under this blue light.
Yeah.
And that is so we as the audience can see. Because in this movie, when they are breaking into his house, it would be super dark. And he navigates that house perfectly. He knows where, I mean, it's his own house. But I love that they did that. Like, it shows him turning off the lamp and stuff. And I don't think a lot of people would notice that because it does show that blue light throughout. They just think, oh yeah, that's what we see, so that's what they see. But I don't think that's the case, because, I mean, he's wearing all black and he turned off all of his lights.
Exactly.
It's just
he's becoming the shadow.
Yeah, he's Splinter selling, and it's pretty great. And what I know that you appreciate this too, but unlike a lot of movies, the gunfire to reload ratio is actually pretty accurate.
Yeah.
There's so many movies that you don't see the guys reloading. It's like, all right, this is an unbelievably amount of bullets.
And let's also talk about Keanu Reeves. I mean, in his acting abilities in this movie, he I don't think people give him enough credit. He does go out there and do his own training, his own gun training and driving. He does all that himself. He's an amazing actor,
All right.
and I believe he did all this himself.
So, okay, so we'll go to that small tangent. So I had it for later, but that's okay. So Keanu Reeves himself claimed that he did 90% of his own stunts. And he spent 4 months of martial arts and weapon training, and that's 8 hours a day for 4 months
Yeah.
straight.
Yeah,
And
I've seen
he learned
videos of his training.
he did. He got really, really good at judo and jujitsu, and
Mhm.
so his instructors for the tactical training said that he almost got too good, and that he was, reloading his magazines and performing all these things faster than professional soldiers.
You should tag a link, or if you can, in here of one of his training videos, because they are impressive.
Yeah.
I've seen them. They are incredible. He's really talented. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I love that the ratio of reloading, you actually see him reload, and I
Yeah.
don't know
Many
why so
times.
many movies don't show that. He goes through his house. He killed 12 people in his house, and there's a part where he makes a phone call where he says, "I'd like to make a dinner reservation for 12."
Yes.
And that is, I love the codes that they use, and that means I need 12 bodies picked up.
You have been doing this for long enough that you trust these people and the crew that they're with to come into your house and just take care of business for a gold coin. You know what I mean? So I couldn't tell if it was trust or money. Maybe a little of both. You don't exactly say what you need done, but they already know. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's all innuendo and all that stuff, and nobody seems to care. Even the cop that shows up doesn't seem to mind.
Love that. I made a note of that.
They're on a first name basis.
Yeah.
That cop's probably like, by the time I get anybody over here, it's all going to be cleaned up anyway.
Right. Well, and I love that because he answers the door and you see red and blue flashing lights and you think, okay, what is this guy?
You already
gonna do?
know.
And right, we know the cop is there, but we don't know how it's gonna handle. Right? He answers the door and he just goes, noise complaint, and the cop's like, yeah, noise complaint. Like John Wick already knows. And the cop Jimmy, he looks inside and sees a dead body on the ground, and he's just like, you working again?
Several of them.
And he's like, he's just like, all right, have a good one. And I didn't know if that was like what I imagine is that it's not John Wick paying off these cops. It is Vigo's family who have this understanding with police officers that say, you stay out of our business, we'll stay out of yours type thing. Because you see that in other places too, where it's just like, all right, the cops know who these guys are. They'll take care of it. You don't have to worry about it. Just let them be. I think that the cop went to John Wick's house because he knew he had retired. So he wanted to just make sure this is okay. But anyway, so yeah, Vigo opens up a contract to kill John Wick at this point. And it's interesting that Marcus, Willem Dafoe, he accepts the contract, but he never tries to actually kill John Wick. And we see that he can. There's different parts throughout this movie that we see how accurate he is with the sniper rifle, but he doesn't step into action until he sees other people trying to kill John Wick.
I want to jump back quick to the bounty portion of it because I have a few notes here that I wrote down. That this was another example in the movie where I don't feel like John Wick was really surprised about the bounty. He just seemed to be like, okay, there's going to be more people after me. I just need to be head on a swivel all the time. I don't think he was surprised by it at all. He just seemed like that was the obvious next move for the person. But one of the things I wanted to point out, because I know you love music in movies, and I loved the music in this part of it. The words to the song were
Oh,
"We're killing strangers so we don't kill the ones we love." It's perfect. Yeah,
okay.
it's absolutely perfect. So I love that. I'm just so impressed at the thoughtfulness in this movie, the details, the little tiny Easter eggs all over the place. It's wonderful. It just makes a
Yeah.
movie really enjoyable to watch, you know.
Yeah. Okay, so then when we get into the Continental, and I'm not gonna go tons into this, I immediately thought of another Keanu Reeves movie. So he goes in the
Oh,
Continental,
absolutely.
and he he wants to make sure, because things have changed about the Continental, but the concierge at the desk says it's the same owners, to shut a show like, hey, it's still neutral ground, right? You can't conduct business on it. What does that remind you of, Mom? Just want to see if you
Yeah,
get the
a
same thing I did.
100%, 100%. The
What is it?
Matrix. The Matrix.
No. Yeah, I was thinking of Papa Midnight's club in Constantine. Remember Constantine?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes. Yes, I forgot about Constantine. I love that movie. I haven't seen that movie in a long time
I
either.
didn't.
That used to be one of my
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. I had a because I collect Zippo lighters, and I have like 5 or 6, but anyway, one of them I had custom made in Japan, and it is Constantine's lighter that has
Oh,
like
that's cool.
exorcism stuff on it, like whatever. It's anyway. So yeah, when I was like, okay, yeah, you can't, and I was like, oh, I've seen this before, right? Constantine. Anyway, another
Yeah,
Keanu Reeves
you're
movie.
absolutely correct. Yeah, I was thinking Matrix for
Yeah,
some reason. But there really wasn't a place that was completely safe there. So, yeah. Anyway,
no, not really.
never mind.
So he goes to the red circle, and this scene, he kills 30 people. Keanu Reeves learned and memorized the entire red circle fight sequences. He learned all of that in one day, and that's incredible.
What?
Yeah, and he had at the top where he's fighting this one guy, and he gets thrown off the balcony and lands on his back. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
When they were filming that part, he had a fever and a temperature of like 104, and he just kept doing take after take after take after take to get it right. And it's just like, I love you, Keanu Reeves.
Wow. 'Cause yeah, that fall right there, I was just like, "Ooh, there is no way you can make that look softer." That was just a pure thump.
Yeah. Well,
That
and
was nuts.
the first when I was reading about the him having a temperature and doing all that, I was thinking about my wife, who's a lead singer of a band. There was a concert she did a number of years ago where she had a fever, and I think it was July in Minnesota, and I think her temperature was like 102, 103, and she was on
Yeah.
stage like headbanging and singing it out, and then nobody could tell, but then after that she slept for like hours. But anyway, just one of those things is just like, yeah, when somebody's dedicated to what they're doing, they're not going to let something like that take them down.
Yeah, that's for
Obviously
sure.
singing a concert and killing 30 people are definitely different things, but good dedication on both.
It's still a lot of energy. One of the other things that I found interesting throughout the movie, and specifically in this movie, was moments of intensity, like where he's hurt maybe and he's trying to like gain strength to keep going, or something like that. When I say like a moment of intensity, like when a moment where he's like maybe pushing to keep going, they show a picture of his wedding ring. Like that, you'll just
Yeah.
see a picture of his hand pushing up, and it's like his hand pushing up, and it's always the hand with his wedding ring on it, which is just like a reminder maybe to the viewer of like why he's doing it. I just like that part of the movie,
Sure.
that these little details.
Yeah. So there's a moment when he's at the church that he is, he's talking to the quote unquote priest. I say that because we know by now that this church is a front, so I don't think the guy's a priest. Anyway, when they're at that safe, he's trying to, like, I don't know, kind of manipulate John Wick a bit. John Wick wordlessly shoots the guy next to him, just to say, like, yeah, try me at this point.
Without
And
hesitation.
I like that. Yeah, and I like that because it's just one more thing to show us that John Wick at this point is he's not messing around.
Exactly. There's no negotiation.
Yeah, from what I counted, he killed 6 people at the church, then 15 more people in the parking lot. At least what is shown on screen, and then he's taken and he's brought into. I don't know if he's brought to the same church, but part of it that's being renovated, or there's a different church. He kills one person there, and then Marcus comes by and kills the other one, and then after that, he kills the driver of Vigo's SUV, and then it cuts into him being at the place where Yosef and his men are, and he kills 8 guards there, and he kills Yosef, at like an hour and 16 into the movie. So, like, the thing that, this punk kid who started all of this at the beginning of the movie, like 10 minutes in, he doesn't kill him for another, hour or so into it. So,
the climax of the movie is killing Joseph and William Dafoe, like both of those two, right? One's the antagonist, one's the anti-villain, I think that we all knew that Joseph was going to get killed. That's no surprise. It was just how long was it going to take, and how many men was he going to allow to sacrifice? It was 79 men. Is what the sacrifice was for his son Joseph. And then, so this religious undertone that the movie had in a couple of different places, because William Dafoe's character, to me, the anti-Judas of that scenario, if you want to look at it in a religious perspective, because he didn't get paid off, right? He accepted his fate, and he knew that that's what his fate was going to be as soon as he betrayed, the deal. And so I think that because of that, William Dafoe was the only good guy in the whole movie, because he protected John Wick, and he did it at the cost of his own life. So he was the sacrifice in the movie. The first time it came, you were like, why did he do that? And then you were like, well, maybe, you know what I mean? You were kind of caught off by it. But then the second time he did it, you were just like, wait a minute, is he helping him?
Because the first, I think it's the first shot we see Marcus taking is when John Wick is laying down at the Continental in his bed, and he's aimed right at his head. He sees Perkins walk in, and then he fires, and he hits like this far above his head, enough to just tell John Wick, "Hey, get up!" Right?
Yeah, wake up.
but we don't know anything about Willem Dafoe. He might have just missed. Like, it could have been, I want to get this bounty first. Let me just quick take a shot. Oh, I missed.
We do know that he accepted this contract. We do know that. That's what we know about him.
Yeah. So, but then later, I like that we figure out, like, that was a warning shot. He wasn't trying to get there before Perkins.
Yeah.
And then to talk about Perkins for a hot second, we learned early on that there's no work or to be done on continental grounds, but we never know what
it's
the
neutral
consequences are to that. But we don't know what the consequences are. But there's that scene where Perkins shows up. Winston says your rights at the Continental has been revoked, and then she gets shot by like 6 men at the same time. If you do this, there are consequences. These are the consequences.
That is correct. That is correct. People pay good money for their neutrality.
And then at the very end, he kills like 6 more people, including Vigo. I'm not including the SUVs that like drop off the edge of at the end when they're doing the Carfu. I'm not counting those guys because they could have survived. I don't think they died.
It's John Wick's body count.
Okay, so here's the thing. I counted 79, and I only counted ones that I could see him doing. But here's the thing: if you look on IMDb, it says 77, and then
Okay.
another place I think it says like 78 or something like that.
Yeah.
I counted 79, and like I said, I didn't count anyone that was off screen. If I didn't see John Wick pull the trigger and someone else die, I didn't count it, because there are a lot of times where he's shooting but he wounds somebody or misses. Because there are some times where he misses. So I only counted what I could confirm was a John Wick death. So I counted 79. I mentioned earlier that I had some issues with some of the script, or at least some of the delivery of certain lines. One of which was Yosef early on. In this one, with Dean Winters, the Mayhem guy, love those commercials. In the car scene, right? He's in the same car as Vigo, and I don't like anything he says in this scene. He says, "I need a gun. Who has a gun? Give me a gun."
Hated.
I can't.
Was what I
know.
wrote.
He says that multiple times, and then at one point he's like, "Hey, the helicopter's right up there." Okay, great. Now we already know the helicopter's there, but that's fine. They do around more fighting, whatever. Vigo's just laughing in the background, but you can also tell he's concerned, because there's a moment where his face looks very concerned, but he's like nervous, laughing it off, because he knows John Wick's right behind him. He's coming to get him, and he's unstoppable. So he knows his whatever. And at one point, Mr. Mayhem says again to Vigo, they are driving to the helicopter. They know that long before John Wick gets there. He has already said the helicopter's up there. And then he says again, Vigo, the helicopter's up there. We got to get up. And then he asks for a gun again. It's just like, dude, I don't know if that was scripted or if some of that was ad-libbed. I like him. I think he's very funny. I like him. I like Dean Winters. But that series of lines and deliveries just took the seriousness out for me. So it's like, okay,
Whoever was in charge of editing, or whoever decided, or whoever's final decision it was to keep that part into this script, should be fired. Because slapstick comedy does not belong in John Wick. It's bad choice, but that is literally the only bad thing I have to say about the movie. But yes, that is exactly what I put on here. Hated the slapstick.
Yeah, and then okay, so here's the thing. Vigo gives him a gun, and he keeps pulling it back, like oh here that was not.
Multiple people have to watch that final reel. Multiple people had to say that was okay to leave in that movie.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. You could have some humor, but put it way earlier. Vigo at this point, he's giving Mr. Mayhem his gun, and he's basically saying, "You're the only thing between John Wick and myself." He gives him a gun that, from what I saw, had no bullets in it. You're giving him an empty gun.
Hey, really quick editor's note. That gun that Vigo gives Mr. Mayhem does have at least one round in it.
So go against the person that you're afraid of?
Your last line of defense.
Yeah, I didn't like any of that. I liked John Wick driving. Like how he integrated, drifting around corners to find people and then shoots them. Like, that was really cool.
I've seen a lot of cool things in movies, and that was so well done and unique. And I was, to use a car, oh, that was great. That part of the movie was great. Like, they get that part, they nailed that part every time.
And then this, the last scene with Vigo. Of course, no weapons, no bullets. All right, at this point, yeah, sure, let's do some hand-to-hand. Okay, I have a question for you, Mom, and everyone else. What's the one thing you learn about if you get stabbed with anything? What is the one thing that you learn? Don't take the knife out.
Well, yeah, that, yes.
What is pretty sure that he still has a knife in his sock that we saw him put there when he was prepping early on in the movie. He put a switchblade in his sock. I don't think he ever used it.
He did put a
He,
switchblade in his sock.
so I don't
Huh.
know what's it called in theater when you show a gun in the first act and you fire it in the third act. Oh, a gun in the first act, it needs to be fired in the second or third act. You can't show a gun. There's two rules with filmmaking and with plays.
Okay.
If you show a weapon, it needs to be used by the end. But also, you can't
Okay.
just all of a sudden the guy has a gun if you don't see how he got it. That's like the two rules of storytelling in both film and plays. So he uses, I don't know. Okay, fine. If you need to get a weapon away from somebody and you know, all right, if he stabs me here, I can survive. That's fine. That's a good way to get your weapon away from somebody. Let him stab you, hang on to it. Now he's defenseless. But you have a knife
Yeah.
with you, so leave that one in so you don't bleed out. Grab the knife on your foot. You know what I mean? I don't know.
But they were okay. In his defense, they were in such close quarter combat at that point that I think it would have been too awkward for him to reach down, pull up his pant leg, grab his knife, and get it out. It may have been easier for him to stay in the position he was in and just grab the knife that he had in hand.
They make a point in either the script or behind the scenes when they were figuring out these shots. They made a point to say that they knew that Vigo was not a match for John Wick. He's older. He doesn't do this for a living. So,
Yes.
and I know that you know, Mom. I know that we both know this. They teach you when you're doing martial arts and fighting and weapons training to create distance between you and your opponent.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's why
you
do kicks to their shins.
Right. And I mean, I'm not like super trained. You know what I mean? Like whether you're grappling on the ground, a little tougher if the other person's also skilled, or you're fighting with a gun or knife or hands, you know how to create distance.
It could be just because of his own, like, you have to think about the amount of revenge that it takes to go through 77 people just to seek, to get to the one person. You know what I mean? I think that pulling him closer was just like, I'm in your face. I am the one that is going to be the last thing that you see. You know what I mean? You just don't know what's in the mind of John Wick sometimes, when you're in a fit of like blind rage, you just do what you do. Instinctually, you would, pound it into his neck.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with that. I had a problem with him taking the knife out of his side to use it when he is an assassin. He has been for long enough.
But Vigo wasn't dead yet, and that was a heavy knife. You know what I mean? I think that, if his opponent would have been dead and he still would have had the knife in, then he probably would have left the knife in. But
it's Hollywood, and it's not like,
yes.
I mean, there's enough stuff about this movie and things where it's not like you can use this as a training course of how to make somebody proficient in these things. We go back to that scene of him watching a video of his wife as "Let's go home," and then he gets up. So I think that was really good. It shows that all throughout this he's still thinking about his wife. I couldn't really figure out like that building that he goes into is, I don't know, there's dog kennels in there, but there's also medical supplies. So it's very lucky that he found that building. But the dog that he finds is marked to be put down, and he saves that dog. And I just like that. Like, they didn't have to put that in. It could have just been a random dog.
And Keanu Reeves, because that's such a Keanu Reeves thing to do.
Yeah. Little thing I noticed too, in the very beginning when he had Daisy, that dog, he was wearing a white shirt and a brown jacket, and Daisy was white and brown. And in this scene, he's wearing all black, and the dog is all black. He was very small and delicate and just kind of very cute, and that is from his wife.
It represented
and this
her.
this dog that he gets is very muscular and stocky, and representing him.
Yeah. I think that's what really made him incredibly furious, is because she was taken from him twice, kind of,
Yeah. Things like that just show how important his wife was to him, and I really like that. Thank you, Mom, for helping me finish this one up. And You're a wonderful,
Yes.
you're a wonderful host.
Aw, thank you, Tyler. I really enjoy being a part of this podcast as well. It's a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you all so much for listening to It's a Classic. If you like it and want to hear more, please follow us on Instagram and YouTube at It's a Classic Film Podcast. You can also rate us on Spotify, which really helps. So join us while we discuss our next movie and see why it's a classic. Well, for us it is.